Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Table Takes. I'm going to be your host for today, Noir. But let's get to the more important part, which are the wonderful people that are with me here today. I would very much love to know what you've been up to this week. I'm sorry, I can't help but Bonsai, you look a little different.
Yeah, sound a little bit different too. Yeah, howdy. I'm Mr. Bonsai. I'm the other half of the Bonsai Baby team, or I guess I'm now the other third of the Bonsai Baby team since
Hey.
Bonsai Baby has spat out her baby. She's caring for it upstairs. He's a monster that just will not stop eating. So there you go. But he's getting big. He'll be, you know, in no time at all, I'll have an extra player to fill out my Arc Nova game. So that'll be good. Still real
That's
easy to beat
awesome.
at games, but it's been a blast. Been keeping both of us a little bit tired, but happy to be here.
Awesome. We're super glad to have you up. I imagine that your week has been filled with a lot of work. So with that, we'll move right along to Javia. Javia, how you been? We missed you last week.
Thanks. I had COVID, but I'm feeling a lot better now. So, yeah, it
I
was rough.
hope you stay better, man.
Thank, thank you.
That COVID is rough.
Yeah, I had a lot of time to basically just do nothing. I played this new game called Dungeons of Ether that came out recently. If you've ever heard of Rivals of Ether, that sort of Smash Bros. Inspired fighting game, they have a dungeon crawler that uses dice, which I mean, you know,
Okay.
obviously I'm going to play that.
Smash Brothers.
Right? Right. But also, I'm building a computer. I'm building my own computer for the first time. I've never done it before. I got a lot of help. So
Okay, I just got one question: Intel or AMD?
I'm pretty sure AMD.
Good man.
That's what I'm looking at. It's a huge stack of stuff that I bought. I accidentally bought two SSD cards instead of an SSD card and a video card. So whoops.
You won't be doing any hardcore gaming for a while, but you'll have tons of space.
Yeah.
And last but certainly not least, Peter, how you been?
Well, I've also been ill. I didn't have COVID, thankfully, but
Thank goodness.
yeah, it's been a rough couple months. I went on vacation for New Year's Eve, and I just never really quite recovered. But I think cross my fingers that I'm okay now. Happy to be back. And so what I did this week was basically just try and get well and like figure out, well, what the heck was I up to before? Like what's going on? It's like Groundhog Day looking around.
What was I doing when I was healthy?
yeah, exactly. What was I up to? But by the way, I'm Mr. Bonsai. Congratulations on
Thank you.
you
Absolutely.
and Bonsai for having a child. That is so great. How about you, Noir? What have you been up to?
Oh, not too terribly much. We adopted a kitten this week.
I was like, what?
That's a big change.
Not too much. Adopted a kid.
Yes, we've adopted a kitten. Well, he's not really a kitten. He's a young cat. I love him to death. And nobody told me that when you adopt because this is my first pet. Nobody told me that when you adopt a pet, one, it's expensive, and two, like you don't care that it's expensive because you just want them to have the best of everything.
Yeah, right
on.
I'm like, oh crap, I care about something else. But yeah, it's been a fun week. And there's been tons of things going on in the TTRPG space, and I can't think of anyone better to lead us through this journey than you, Peter. So, can you tell us a little bit about what we've got coming up here in Gen Con?
Yeah, we're talking about the Gen Con spring collection of merchandise from Rollicrit. Yeah, forget spring cleaning. Get ready for spring gaming with the Rollicrit, as in rollacrit.com, Gen Con spring collection. Your tabletop and board games have never looked so good. The new lineup of Gen Con merchandise for spring gaming includes male and female cut t-shirts, raglan t-shirts, sweatshirts, sports bras, leggings, tote bags, tumblers, mugs, a Gen Con pattern flag, fanny packs, flip-flops, spiral notebooks, and laptop sleeves. For too long, Analog gamers' merchandise needs beyond the traditional black t-shirt have been overlooked, but Rollicrit is changing that. Remember, rollicrit.com. Also, by the way, I just want to point out later in our show today, we have a special guest. The co-founder of Scripted Games, Bridget Winter, will be here to talk about her Kickstarter, Psychic Trash Detectives, which will also be featured on today's episode of Sarah's Table.
Oh, that's awesome. I
Oh.
cannot wait to check that out. So,
You know what would be really great for spring wear that I don't see anywhere on this apparel list?
I knew this was going to come. I knew it.
Why is there no Gen Con romper?
No, romper. Jackie, if you're listening, please tell our friends at Rollicrit there's a high demand for rompers.
You know what we need to do? We need to get the creator of Gen Con on the line. Hey, Peter.
Owner here.
Yeah. Creator was Gary Gygax. I'm simply the current
sorry.
custodian.
See, now that means he doesn't have enough authority, is what it is. If only Gygax was around, he could get a romper done in no time.
I do have an idea, though. I have a costume designer, Layla Blue Arampanahu, who does costume designing for Actoroki. She could do a Gen Con romper as a concept, and we could send it to them and say, hey. And
that sounds awesome.
And Javion could model it, of course.
I'd be happy to.
We'd have a little photo shoot down at the studio. Yeah, that could be
as long as I get to keep it.
It'll be a collectible exclusive bit of gaming history.
That's right.
Kind of like Hot Pockets. Javion, could you explain?
Nice.
Well,
nice.
Well, actually, I'm not the biggest Hot Pocket expert. How they've played a role in board gaming up to this point is still a mystery to me. But if you are a fan of Hot Pockets and you just so happen to also be a fan of Magic the Gathering, I have great news for you. Wizards of the Coast has teamed up with Nestle's Hot Pockets to give you unlockable in-game rewards just for buying Hot Pockets. Now, I don't see it anywhere here that it says you actually have to eat any of the Hot Pockets, although I think based off of my personal experience, it's really not the same if you just buy the boxes and end up not eating them. So I recommend it. My favorite is probably pepperoni pizza of all of the
It's the GOAT.
it's straightforward, it's to the point, it's classic. It's not original, it's not regular. It's just what the people want. But there's plenty of flavors for you to choose from, such as the meatballs and mozzarella. We've got the Philly steak and cheese and the ham and cheddar as well.
That's it. Those are the top three right there.
So yeah, if you're like Noir and me and you love Hot Pockets, there are lots of ways for you to collect unlockable content. So it looks like you will be able to collect the rewards that will be accessible on Magic the Gathering Arena. All you have to do is actually buy the Hot Pockets, and it comes with codes that will unlock online rewards like pre-constructed decks, Planeswalker avatars, XP, and more.
You can get a whole deck.
Yeah,
I'm excited for what this will kick off. We can have pizza rolls and Yu-Gi-Oh partnership and bagel bites and Pokemon. Like, we could really get this going here.
This reminds me of like back in the day when you would do like the box toppers for like cereal and stuff like that and bring them to school for the book fair and stuff. I love that people are really excited about it online. There's a huge amount of people who thought that it might have been like an April Fool's joke a month earlier or something like that. But yeah, people are really excited about it. People are excited to see what other stuff they end up coming out with. But yeah, I think anytime you pair something up like this with a really high popularity game or anything like that, you end up with a recipe for no pun intended, success.
I just want pepperoni and red manna.
Yes. Listen, there's a part. Yeah. there's a part of the article that I think you missed. That's okay. And that is if you are just buying Hot Pockets for the codes, send me the Hot Pockets and I will eat them.
Okay, you heard it here, folks. Noir is going to give you his address. All you have to do is
Yuck.
mail it straight to his P.O. box. No,
Oh,
actually,
so far we got rompers and we got hot pockets. What's left in this episode?
You know,
Peter, now that actually you're onto something there with the pepperoni and red mana. There are 4 boxes that have 4 mana types on them. So the meatballs and mozzarella is white mana. The Philly steak and cheese is blue, and then the pepperoni pizza is red, like you said, and then ham and cheddar is green. I don't know if they have a black mana box. I guess
black
that
mana.
didn't test well when they were trying out.
they should have made
Poland's.
the roast beef
Barbecue.
black- you know-
Decomposed.
You know,
Yeah.
listen, I'm not even gonna try to do a clever segue because I just want a hot pocket right now. So, Mr. B, could you
Have
tell
you
us-
tried putting a hot
Yeah.
pocket in the air fryer though? It's so good. Like better than any.
I've never thought to do that. Like, I think you may have just changed my
There we
mind.
go.
So,
The
so
third theme. Yeah, please, Mr. Bonsai, save it.
I have news that's both fun for some folks and probably unfortunate for a lot of new tables that are going to pick this trap up without realizing it. But Renegade Game Studios has announced that they're releasing a new edition of Diplomacy. For those who might remember all the way back to October of last year, they came up with they announced they were having an expansion of their license with Hasbro and picking up a license to reprint Axis and Allies, Diplomacy, Robo Rally, a few other games. And now they're announcing that the new edition of Diplomacy is coming out in August of 2023. And for those who don't know or who are less familiar with Diplomacy, I mean, it's a classic board game, right? But it's sort of like Risk right at the outset of World War I, and there's no dice rolling. Instead, it's just a game that's fueled entirely by backstabbing, right? And so, I say this is a game like it is the board game equivalent of canoeing. It doesn't matter how tight your relationship, your friendships, your love is. Whatever you have at the start of Diplomacy, it will be over at the end of Diplomacy. It is like
We're not
the death
kidding.
knell.
Diplomacy has caused more than one divorce. I am not joking. There are forums about this game.
I believe it.
Yeah.
All right, just to give you a brief rundown of how the game's played. You pick a country, a starting country that has resources and major points of interest. And your goal is to have your army kind of capture those points of interest from other countries. And the way that's done is you discuss what you're going to do for 30 minutes with everybody. You make deals like, Peter, I promise I would never send my fleet to France to take your power plant. And then after the 30 minutes, I go and I send my army to take the power plant from France.
Yeah. You write
Yeah.
your orders down in secret. And because there's no rolling, it's basically whoever, if I send 3 armies and you send 2, I automatically win. It's that kind of game. So, it's very much a game where there's no amount of like, oh, I didn't realize if I sent 3, you'd actually lose, right? I thought the odds, there's none of that.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
you know exactly when you've betrayed someone and they know too.
I will say this in its defense. First of all, it's a very important game in the history of board games. This is from the 1960s. It predates RPGs. 2, I would say, dare you to find a game that more accurately delivers on its premise than the game Diplomacy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It is definitely the game that it's the game that I feel like it's kind of the necessary step up for where you're like, you've grown out of Risk.
Yeah.
You're ready for something a little bit more, but you're not ready for I don't know, like Kemet or something like that, you know.
So hey, Mr. B, Bonsai, Mr. B, what you said, a new edition? Are they changing the rules from this game that's like 60 years old, or is it just a new printing?
It is just a reprint. They're just updating it, giving it some new graphics,
facelift. Sure.
Yeah, okay. we're gonna get some updated meeples and such.
Yeah,
so that you aren't staring at the same old box of diplomacy. You get some fancy new graphics there.
All right, so you can in your relationships with new graphic designs. Well, speaking of shady individuals, Sea of Thieves: Voyage of Legends is coming out. A board game adaptation of Sea of Thieves, the video game where players become pirates, is coming from the studio behind the Elden Ring board game, Steamforged Games. After being teased by the company last month via a mysterious tweet on the official Steamforged Games Twitter account, it has been confirmed that the board game based on Sea of Thieves is indeed being released by the studio. And I, for one, am excited. I love any chance I get to be a pirate. I love Steamforged Games. Got a couple of friends that work with the company, and they are just really diligent folks and really great at adapting video games and making them palatable for the board game, for board game enthusiasts. So I am looking forward to it. Apparently, it's going to be 2 to 4 players. Really, really excited for this. Have you all played Sea of Thieves, and what do you think about this?
The pirate game, right?
Yeah,
I have not played it.
I've played it a little bit, and I think this is really cool. This to me, I think is in many ways, it's a much more natural, like these folks, they've done all the Dark Souls board games and the Dark Souls RPG, and I think some of those, honestly, they feel like they're a little bit of a stretch adapting them to a board game or tabletop in some ways. But I think Sea of Thieves, a pirate theme where you're trying to become the ultimate pirate legend, is just like the perfect like bit where like you can adapt a video game into a nice tight board game theme, and it feels just right to me.
Absolutely. I'm very excited for it as well. I can't wait to see how many of my anime loving friends take it and try to convert it to One Piece. But this is really exciting news. Again, it is expected to be released this summer at a retail price of $60. So be on the lookout for that, because it is sure to be very, very exciting. You know what else is very exciting? Dragons. So I've got some news coming from WizKids. WizKids unveils D&D Icons of the Realms adult brass dragon. Brass dragons are the more personable of dragons who crave conversation, sunlight, and hot, dry climates. As they get older, their pupils slowly fade into eyeballs that look like metal orbs. This figure comes highly detailed, decorated with premium paints, and is available in D&D Nozer's marvelous miniature unpainted version as well. I've always had a particular soft spot for brass dragons, just because with a red dragon, you have to be afraid of being burned alive and eaten. With a gold dragon, you have to be afraid of being burned alive and eaten. With a brass dragon, you have to worry about being buried in the sand and talked to death. So that's very much my favorite dragon. I relate to them in a real way, and this figure looks absolutely gorgeous. The painted version is going to retail for about $99.99, and the unpainted version retails for $89.99. WizKids will also release D&D Icons of the Realm Adult Lunar Dragon, a new pre-painted premium figure as well. So be on the lookout for everything dragons, because it's really cool looking.
Wow.
Any dragon thoughts?
No, I just think, like, if you run into a dragon, it's a perfect chance to tell them about your character. A blue dragon. Yeah, right.
I'm still a little confused how you relate to brass dragons, because they bury people in sand and talk them to death. Is it the burying them in sand or talking them to death?
Is there something we don't know about your backyard?
I don't know. Listen, I've been on enough dates to know that my mouth gets me into trouble, and if they were stuck there, I'd probably still be talking.
Have we
Okay.
figured out what kind of dragon is in the new Dungeons and Dragons movie yet? Because I know it's a lot larger or like
Mhm.
wider than the dragons that I've seen. It's definitely not. Well, it doesn't look like anything like this one does.
It is a thick red dragon.
Oh, okay,
They got a
gotcha,
chunky dragon in the D&D
gotcha,
movie,
classic,
which I'm
absolutely.
very excited to check out. But dragons are kind of like the winners of the fantasy monster scene.
Yeah.
And I feel like hearing about a few more winners. Javion, can you help me with that?
Absolutely. Perhaps you've heard of the award series known as the ADO. I did my best to pronounce that. It's a French pronunciation, ADO, or easier to pronounce, Golden Ace Game Awards for board gaming. They're given out every year at the Festival International des Jeux in Cannes, France. I hope I pronounced that right. So it's like the Spiel des Jahres, except French instead of German. So we get to see this year what wins the awards for Game of the Year, Best Expert Game, and Best Intermediate Game. So if you're ready, it looks like the Best Intermediate Game this year was Challengers. Challengers is a capture the flag game based off of deck building mechanics. It's a very interesting game. We actually did cover talking about it and announcing it last year when we were told about what it was. And it combines a lot of strange characters you might not have. Think of it like that episode of Rick and Morty with all of the different creatures that were popping up in randomness, all in one room together. It's kind of like that. You've got dinosaurs, you've got cartoon characters of all kinds, you've even got real life inventors and notable figures such as Abraham Lincoln is a character you could play as, or play a card as, rather. So it's very wacky, very silly, but apparently people really like it. Kind of flew under my radar in particular, but I'm very excited now that I have a new game on my list that I need to try. And best expert game goes to a game I think one of us here has already mentioned. They're a big fan of Mr. B. Uh, Arc Nova is the best expert game. It is a game. Mr. B, why don't you tell us about what Arc Nova is?
Yeah, it's Zoo Tycoon. I don't even know if I can say it's Zoo Tycoon as a board game any longer because now they're making Zoo Tycoon as a board game. But but that's basically the idea. You get to build a zoo, and it feels very much like it's obviously a completely different theme, but it feels very much like terraforming Mars. Like, in fact, if you've played terraforming Mars and I show you one of these cards again, you're like, okay, those are the requirements and that's what it gives you and that's the cost. And you're like, you can understand it. Instead of some generic picture of an asteroid slamming into a city, it's like, oh, it's an elephant. All right. So yeah, it's terraforming your zoo. Okay. And it's a really fun game.
Yeah, excellent stuff. And the Game of the Year award, which typically goes to more casual games, unlike Arc Nova, went to Acropolis, a game that I actually would say is probably my favorite game now. Even though it doesn't have any dice.
What?
I know it's really just that good. It is a tile placement game where you can pretty much teach it to anybody. It's just so accessible. Where you are trying to build an acropolis, meaning you're trying to build a city that's not measured in terms of width and length, but also in height. So you're stacking the tiles on top of each other as well. And you're just trying to get lots of points by drafting these tiles from the center of the board. Very simple mechanics, very accessible from a visual standpoint. You don't have to know what the colors mean or anything like that. You can just notice the differences because it's very, very vibrant. And it's very short too, so you can play a couple games in a night and not get really bored either. So it's very, very good. It beat out other titles that are also along the same lines of that casual gameplay style, as well as uh, Magic Maze designer Casper Labs item memory game called That's Not a Hat, which actually only came out really recently. and it still caught the eye of award and judges as well. So, and also a 2-player bluffing game called District Noir got a notable mention,
Ooh.
which
What?
I've never heard of. None of us have, I don't think. Otherwise, we definitely would have played it by now because it
I
has
didn't
the
know they
name
made a
of
game based on my
co-host in it.
street.
It sounds great. I love these awards because it always gives me more stuff to learn about and play, or just validates all of the things that I feel about board games, such as Acropolis is the best game of the year. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
very big congratulations to all of the winners and to all the runner-ups as well. And we'll keep an eye out for next year coming up soon as well.
I gotta tell you that I really want to try that Challengers game. That sounds really
Right.
interesting.
Yeah, like we I know we talked about it briefly, but and it just sounds kind of like that kind of game you would see anywhere. But I mean, it won best intermediate game, so I definitely want to check it out.
Well, I know I'll be trying it out at Gen Con. All right, so I have heard enough about winners. I want to hear about potential winners. I want to feed on the potential. Peter, can you help me with this?
Can help you. I've got you, Noir. Okay, so Alex Meehan also has you from Dicebreaker. He brings us the news that Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel, a collection of adventures designed for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, has been nominated for a Nebula Award for Best Game Writing. The anthology was nominated alongside several other notable video games, but we don't care about those. We're rooting for the tabletop gaming nomination.
That's right.
Another nomination of interest to us tabletop gamers is the writing for a video game. This is one exception. This is a video game adaptation of the horror RPG series Vampire the Masquerade, called Sins of the Sires, which is entirely text-based and has players making various decisions in Athens. The Nebula Awards are a series of accolades given to exceptional examples of science fiction and fantasy. It was founded by the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association in 1965. The Nebula Awards began as a way to recognize excellent science fiction and fantasy novels, novellas, and short stories. Since then, several award categories have been added to the collection, including one celebrating best game writing. The awards are voted on by more than 2,000 members. Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel is an anthology of adventures for fantasy RPG Dungeons and Dragons that was written by an all POC, people of color team of writers, including Ajit George, Wesley Schneider, Justice Raman Arman, Dominique Dickey, Pam Puzalan, and many other amazing designers. The collection features various adventures, each one inspired by the author and their own personal cultural experiences. If Journey Through the Radiant Citadel wins the award for Best Games Writing, it would not be the first tabletop RPG to do so. This award was also granted to Thirsty Sword Lesbians in 2021, a queer tabletop role-playing game about sword fighting and passion. So we are, if you are one of the 2000 Nebula Award members who votes on these awards, I would recommend giving Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel serious consideration.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. And that book was put together by such an amazing group of creators.
Oh yeah,
I'm not gonna say I'm impartial, but I am rooting for them. So, you know what? I love this. I love potential winners. I want more, Mr. Bean. Make
more
it
potential
happen.
winners. Well, I've got 17 more potential winners for you because, as it turns out, the 2023 Cardboard Edison finalists have now been announced. And what's the Cardboard Edison Award? I'd actually never heard of it until we were going over, the notes and looking at the news for this week. And it's honestly a fascinating award to me, right? So the Cardboard Edison Award, this was created in 2016 by Chris and Suzanne Zinsley, all right, in order to help new designers and new talent make their way into the board game industry. Help folks enter the industry from sort of non-traditional backgrounds, right? And the idea is you can go ahead and pitch your game to these awards, your game that doesn't even exist yet. All right. And they'll have all sorts of people, their judges, go ahead and try your game out, play test it a little bit. And from among that group, they'll select a number of finalists. And then those finalists go on to make a final prototype that is then played even more before they finally select some winners who hopefully can draw the attention of the rest of the industry and find themselves a great publisher. So this year, they managed to draw on 249 applicants, and they've now narrowed those down to just 17 finalists. As finalists they've got about another month or so till they have to get final prototypes in, and then we're going to only hear about the winners in May. But right now, you can still review each of the 17 nominees and kind of get an idea about what each of their games are about. And when I sort of poured through this, I'd say top two in terms of what interested me right away were Floats and Falls, which is basically it's a city builder game where you build a city on the edge of a waterfall as all the pieces of your city slowly float down river and eventually over the edge of the waterfall. So it's sort of I don't even know if push your luck is the right mechanic for you, but you're trying to go ahead and wait a little bit of time for those pieces to float just far enough down the river for you to seize them and put them into the spot you want in your city, but not too far that you lose them entirely. Okay. And then I think the other one that seemed real fun to me was what is it? Positano, which is a block-based city builder. It's like uses, sort of like Lego blocks. And you're trying to build one of these beautiful seaside Italian or Greek towns with the stacked homes right along the edge of the water on the cliff face. And the gimmick, though, is you're really competing not just to build the biggest building or anything like that, but to build the buildings with the nicest ocean views. All right. So it's kind of like you're just trying to, if you build a building and someone builds another one in front of you, blocking your ocean view, you get 0 points. So it's a game about, real estate prices, but it sounds fun because I guess I'm a dweeb like that. All right. But a lot of really cool games out there, especially for games that haven't even been released. I think it's easy to go ahead and go down this list of 17 finalists and find a half dozen. You could say I could easily see that on my shelf. So yeah. I think this is a really fantastic award. It's a cool way to highlight some of these upcoming designers.
I really I've never heard of this, and I now want to submit something to them.
Yeah. It's kind of neat, huh?
Yeah, that's extraordinarily cool. But enough of us all getting along. It's time to look at bundles. I believe we do have no bundles, crowdfunders. Sorry. The time has come.
The court is in session.
Yes.
Boom, boom, boom. Yes, it is Crowdfunder Court, the high stakes event where our hosts bring before the court their thoughts, their recommendations, put their very lives on the line in the court to see what we think of their ideas. So I will show by example. I am going to present to the court Navathem's End. Navathem's End is being crowdfunded on Kickstarter. It's raised $8,700 versus a goal of $8,000, and it has 20 days to go. Looks like they will blow it away. Navathem's End is a Powered by the Apocalypse RPG from two Filipino game designers, Cinta Posadas and Pam Ponzalan. Posadas' game Lutong Banwa was awarded Best in Art for the Indie Groundbreaker Award in 2021. Ponzalan has been nominated for the Diana Jones Award Emerging Designer Award and won an Emmy as a team member of Asians Represent. Before Navathem's End, the two worked together at My Big Fat Aswang Wedding, Across This Wasteland Sith U, and Public Utility Mech. In their newest collaboration, Navathem's End, you play as an agent of the tower, saving the world from an apocalypse. Good luck with that. You play in a dazzling, chaotic, broken world where you're the last line of defense versus all mayhem breaking loose. This is a role-playing game, by the way. The book includes everything you need to play, from the information on the world to the characters, maps, and creatures. Will you be able to stay true to your name when trouble arises, agent? That's the question this game asks of you. All right. Do we have any other nominations for the crowdfunding court today?
Why, yes, I have one indeed.
You may approach the bench, Javion.
Thank you very much. How about an RPG that anyone can enjoy, whether or not you can speak? Doesn't matter. Alice is Missing. Silent Falls is the expansion to the hit and highly anticipated award-winning silent role-playing game, Alice is Missing. If you haven't heard about it before, it is a deeply atmospheric role playing game for you and your closest friends to try and find someone named Alice in a world that seems to have forgotten about her. The actual core gameplay mechanics include texting and no speech whatsoever except for explaining the rules at the beginning. What you do is you'll get a character and a relationship to other characters as well as Alice herself, and you try to play through a mystery of trying to figure out what happened to Alice. And with this new expansion, you get even more of the content you love, including more characters and relationships, more locations to visit where Alice might have been missing, more clue cards as to where she could be, and more items to find in those locations that you end up searching. I highly recommend this game if you're looking for something that's unique and a little bit different, that requires of you a lot less of the vocal, changes that maybe make you a little bit anxious to play role playing games. And if you want a little bit more direction in your goals of like what to do when you're pretending to be somebody else, this game holds your hand the whole way through. And honestly, it's a very emotional game as well. You end up diving into really deep and emotional themes that you might not delve into with your classic, fantasy-based RPG. It's not about killing monsters and collecting lots of money. It's about finding out more about the people who live in this small town and delving deep into the mind of a young girl named Alice and all the different possibilities that come with it. So there are plenty of different pledge levels that you can go into, whether or not you want to just play the digital version and get the expansion as well. Play it on Roll20 like I do, or you can get physical versions bundled with it. So you can play over the table with your friends as well. There's 4 days left to go. The Kickstarter ends on March 14th, but it's fully funded, so rest assured, it'll probably be coming to a local game store near you very soon as well. Like I said, I highly recommend it if you're looking for something that's a little bit out of the ordinary, or if you just want a reason to cry on a Friday afternoon.
Well, there will be no crying in this court, but I have a question for you, Javion, if you can indulge the court.
I'll do my best.
Can you explain? Well, can you explain? I mean, role playing is about talking, and it's a silent role play. Like, explain the disconnect here, if you can.
Sure. Well, what you're doing is you still get a role to play, but the way you express those things are through the cards that are on the table and through texting other people that are at the table as well. Having group text and conversations with maybe 1, 2, or even 3 people at a time. Having the restriction of not being able to just, say what you want for everybody to hear. Having a little bit more hidden information and discovering things with each other. It's a really unique and original experience you can't get anywhere else. That's why Alice is Missing has won so many awards already. It's a really phenomenal and one-of-a-kind experience.
Wow. Well, that sounds excellent. Well, you may keep your head.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Your Honor, if I may, I have an entry to the court as well.
Please, you may approach the bench, Mr. B.
Thank you. All right. I'd like to present Cool Name RPG, a community-owned fantasy role-playing system. And yes, that is actually the name they're giving it. Cool Name goes here, Cool Name RPG. So setting aside the terrible name, okay, Cool Name RPG is actually, they're setting out to make a fantasy RPG that will be provide a perpetual, irrevocable, royalty-free license for creators, right? The intent is to release a completely community-owned RPG. It's another step in the fallout, I think, from the whole OGL drama. But and there's certainly been a whole mess of these. I know, like, it feels like everyone and their mother is releasing their own irrevocable, perpetual, royalty-free license and that kind of thing. But there's a couple things that actually drew me in about this. This one in specific. One, I think the biggest thing that they're highlighting this right off the bat is the number of veteran, large, big name designers that have attached themselves to this project. We've got folks like Matt Forbeck, Owen Stevens, but I think that really the two biggest that I caught onto right away is Robin D. Laws and Kenneth Haidt. Okay.
Oh, wow.
So there, for those who are unfamiliar, Robin Laws, he's the person who designed the Gumshoe system, as well as Hero Quest, and Kenneth Haidt, he's the man behind Trail of Cthulhu and Night's Black Agents, right? As well as Vampire 5. So
Yeah.
the incredible thing to me about seeing some of these names attached to this is a lot of the folks that have come towards this approaching this sort of OGL drama have been looking at things from the angle of how do we go ahead and sort of take 5th edition D&D and maybe tweak it or make it better and protect it for the community. And I think that just looking at the designers that they've brought on for this team, what it really looks like they're bringing on is a lot of folks who are prepared to look at fantasy RPGs from a different angle, right? And say, like, how do we go ahead and provide folks a fantasy RPG that maybe isn't just another D&D experience, right? If we're ready to rewrite the book, then let's actually rewrite it. And so they haven't announced whether or not this is going to be D20 based or D6 based or a storyteller system or anything like that, or based on Gumshoe. But just looking at the cast of characters, all the designers that they're bringing onto this, I can't help but believe that we're going to see something really novel, something really interesting come out of this. So the purpose of this project is really just to help pay back the folks who are donating their time to help work on this project. Ultimately, they aren't going to be making money off of royalties, right? They're not going to be making big fat checks. They're just going to be going ahead and carving out and getting a small piece of the pie off of whatever it is that this project pulls in. So right now it's pulled in a bit over $27,000, and there's only 4 hours left to go. But the point is, this project is already fully funded, and they've already announced that regardless of how this shakes out, when they're done and they release this just comes out for free to the entire community. So again, the point of this is that this will be a completely community-owned RPG. No specifics again on the system or even the direction they're going there, or what sort of license that specifically they plan to do. But again, just seeing the folks who are associated with this and knowing the value that community gaming has to them, I think we can count on getting something really remarkable out of this. And it's really cool to see it.
Well, your case is well argued. Noir, do you have a comment there?
I was just going to say, and if you want to hear a little bit more about this system, last week we had Mark Tassin on of Gen Con, who's part of this, explaining a little bit more about the system. So please be sure to check that out on the VODs.
Yeah, nice. Well, excellent argument, Mr. B. And so, and also, anytime a petitioner of the court, mentions Ken Haidt and Robin Laws, they pretty much it's a shoo-in. So there we go. Okay, well, that concludes our crowdfunder segment for today. Noir, I pass things back to you, probably to tell us about our guest, huh?
Yeah, I think we've done a lot of good here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break while we bring in our guest. Our guest who we're going to be. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. I might just my brain went. We're going to be bringing our guest Bridget Winter and talk a little bit about psychic trash detectives. So give us just a few minutes while we get
Don't
that
go
set
away.
up. We'll be right back. Hello, and we're back as promised. See, I would never lie to you.
It's quick.
And we have a very special guest with us today, Bridget Winter. Thank you so much for joining us today. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm really happy to be here. So great to meet all of you.
Nice to meet you.
Howdy.
So, just off the bat, I have to ask, psychic trash detectives.
Yes.
First off, best name ever.
I feel like the name says it all.
That's the whole segment. Lovely to have you, Bridge, with it. Psychic trash detective. That's it. We're out. No, but for those that are unfamiliar, can you kind of take us through what is psychic trash detectives?
Yeah, so Psychic Trash Detectives is a collaborative GM-less game that is played with trash instead of dice. So real, actual garbage that people bring to the table. And you play trash animals, so like raccoons, possums, seagulls, animals like that. And you are working together to solve a mystery that no one cares about. And you are able to experience psychic visions by interacting with garbage. So that is the premise of the game.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
I love this idea. This is great.
I have so many questions.
And I may have answers to some of them, but
would love to know like an example of a mystery that nobody cares about. What's a good example of that?
yeah, so these animals live on the fringes of society. So it is, quite seriously, like at its core, a game about found family and community and sort of what it is to be rejected by the rest of society. And so, the mystery could be that a trash animal is missing and nobody else cares. The mystery could be that all the trash in town seems to be disappearing, which is great for the town, but real sad for the trash animals. So it can be as silly or as serious as you want. But the point is that these animals care. And so they're gonna solve this mystery.
Oh wow, that's cool. That's very cool. It reminds me of like I used to have a psychic class back in early D&D, some expansion, and it had an ability called sensitivity to psychic impressions, which was the ability to grab some item or thing or even a doorway or whatever and get sort of visions of emotional content that related to this thing. And I ran a couple. I had so much fun running that particular idea. So this brings it back. This reminds me of that. I think it's a really cool idea.
Yeah, it's very fun. And the idea is that the mechanics of the game allow the players to experience that kind of emotional and improvised psychic experience. So when you go through the scenes in the game, there are actually all of these mini games that you collaboratively do where you have visions together. And so they could be anything from trying to answer a question one word at a time and going around in a circle. And then when you reach the end of the sentence, trying to interpret together what that means. It could be everybody closing their eyes and drawing a picture that answers the question and then comparing the pictures to see what the similarities are. So you really are kind of living this experience of psychically solving the mystery through these little games.
Well, and if you're going around, everybody's contributing a word. I mean, this is uncoordinated. And I mean, so it's kind of like ad libs or it's like stand up in a way, right?
Yeah. And people surprise themselves, right? So it's the idea of the game is you define the mystery, you create your characters, and there's no predetermined resolution to the mystery. You actually figure it out through play by going through these mini games and kind of getting in sync with each other and then deciding what these psychic visions mean. And the wild thing is that it works. Like every time I've run a playtest, they've solved the mystery. It's like people are having actual like weird animal visions.
That's just like astrology. I mean, say what you want to, but it works somehow.
Yeah.
I'm always fascinated, Bridget, by like the kind of the creative process that goes into making like these off the wall really nuts games, because these are some of my favorite. Like I love the games like this. All right. And I see you talk about like, oh, it's inspired by games like Dialect and Alice is Missing, but this game could only be inspired by Alice is Missing about this far. All right. Like no one's playing Alice is Missing going like, what if I was a possum, digging through Burger King wrappers instead? Okay. So I'd love to hear, how did you end up with this nuts, fantastic idea of a game?
Yeah. I mean, look, we all lived through the past 3 years. So you know, like we know what it's like for there to be a dumpster fire. Like the idea of experiencing being trash animals, I think, like is part of the collective psyche right now. And I also was very interested at the time that I was coming up with the idea for this game in like how to create a psychic experience through play. And I, you know, made the interesting decision to combine those two interests and explore how that could work. I'm very interested in the ways that mechanics can actually contribute to the kinds of stories that you're able to tell and make the game more immersive. And so I think from there, it really was about how to use those mechanics to have those kind of psychic experiences, how to use the mechanics to build relationships between the characters that are super affirming and like about like radically accepting your weird gross self in this moment in time. And just all kinds of cool ideas came up from that. So it really started with that idea of wanting to create this immersive experience and figuring out what mechanics supported that.
It's way cool.
I want to know who pitched the garbage. Like, I'm like, I could just imagine it. Like, do we use dice? Do we use meeples? It's just somebody in the corner going, trash.
So it was me, and there was definitely some debate, but I'm really glad we actually landed on it because I think that it's become like so central to the experience of the game to have people actually bring trash and like, you know, like we're adults. You can trust people to not be edgelords and like hurt each other, you know. But it's fun to be like, what's in your pockets? Like, what's at the bottom of your purse? Like, put it on the table. That's what we're playing with now.
Can I just also commend you on the name of each pledge level in your Kickstarter? There's belly button lit, gum wrapper, banana peel, takeout carton, sanitation engineer, dumpster delight, and dumpster deluxe.
Yep.
Dumpster Deluxe.
That's gonna be my new nickname.
And that was the whole scripted games team brainstorming those names. It's a lot of creative, amazing people that I work with.
Can you tell us more about them? Like, how big was the team and what was it like working with them?
Yeah, so we are just now starting a game studio. There are 5 of us. It's called Scripted Games, and we're focused on making games like this one that are innovative, that are really interested in how stories are told. Our tagline is we make story games for people who love books. So people who really want to have immersive story experiences. And yeah, there are 5 people. You can go to our website and learn about each of us. Everybody actually created their own little game that's part of that takeout carton level, so you can get to know each of us as creators. But we started off in a workshop together that we had created where we wanted to make cool games together and support each other in that. It just sort of evolved into this incredible idea of like, well, why don't we put those games into the world? So this is our first Kickstarter. And it's been, I think, as you've seen, like pretty successful. So we're gonna just, you know, keep making these weird games and hope that y'all, everybody out there follows us.
It's really awesome. I wish you more luck with all of the extra games that you guys end up making.
Yeah.
So the basics of the campaign, it's on Kickstarter. What's your funding goal? Where are you at towards that goal? How many days you have left?
Yeah. So the Kickstarter closes on the 16th. So we are in the final days. So like 8 a.m. on the 16th. So next Thursday. And we like our initial goal was very small. It was our kind of minimum viable. We can print the game with this amount. And people loved this so much that like it like exceeded our wildest expectations. And so we've blown through, I think, 7 stretch goals at this point. The book is going to be bigger. It's going to be like include other little mini stories that are set in this world of psychic trash detectives, additional art by the amazing artist, A.V. Erie, who created the cool design that you see on the Kickstarter. We're publishing a book as part of this that is going to be a facilitator's guide to anti-oppressive facilitation for games. And our 10K goal, which is what we are pushing toward right now, is going to fund a launch party on the East Coast for this game, in addition to some coloring pages featuring trash animals designed by A.V. Erie. So we can do kind of a coloring party, but everybody who gets the game, if we hit 10K, gets a cool coloring page. So we're in like the let's get fun stuff stage of the Kickstarter now.
11K stretch goal should be just to include a little bit of trash with each thing that's shipped out. Just autograph trash.
Trash, random trash.
Yeah.
Now, is it like you're on Sarah's table today? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So it's a two-parter. So the first part was last week, and then tonight is the second part. But it's like the meat of it, where everybody's actually going through the scenes with their characters. So it should
back to the dumpster.
Yeah. Exactly.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the art that you have for this is just gorgeous.
Isn't it?
It's and I have a special spot in my heart for raccoons. It's just so good.
Like, everybody should follow A.V. Erie, who created that artwork. She also has an online comic that she's been creating that is incredible. So like, definitely check her out, because it's just more beautiful artwork like that.
Heck yeah. My last question will be at least this much. Scripted games. I'm very curious about you guys. Do you have any plans for the future? Any plans for expansion? How did that all start?
Yeah, so as I said, we started as a writing workshop where we were really interested in exploring the intersection of interactive fiction and games and literature and theater and like all kinds of weird stuff that we were into. And we just sort of like fell in love with each other. We did a retreat together in the Catskills and played a bunch of games and wrote. And it was like one night we were sitting around a fire drinking. And there were actual shooting stars, like it was real pretty. And we were just, dreaming together about the games that we wished existed in the world. And, it was one of those magical moments where we were like, well, what if we make those games?
Nice.
Why not?
Nice.
What's stopping us? And so like starting there, we came up with our business plan, like for this company, launching with this Kickstarter during Zine Quest. There are so many other games that are in the works that, are on the horizon that I can't wait to share with you. There is a game we pre-released by Nat Mesnard, Ball of the Wild, which you can actually get as an add-on for this Kickstarter. It is about animals dressing in drag as other animals.
Yes.
So freaking cool. So definitely check that one out too. But yeah, we're going to make more games. We're going to publish more. And there are like maybe some other plans in the works. But I'll sit on that for a little bit. So maybe follow us. So you can
absolutely
more about that. Yeah.
Follow Scripted Games, follow Bridget. I'm gonna have my eye on this. This is right up my alley. Is there any other questions from anyone? Or
what's your favorite kind of Hot Pocket?
Oh man. Wow, you're like ending with the hard-hitting question. Oh my
And
God.
do you own a romper?
Okay, so that one's easy. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the bad one.
You're in.
And
You're
like
in.
Hot Pocket, like just fill it with cheese. Like truly. Just
Can't go wrong with
just
cheese.
The healthiest, most amazing cheese.
Good answer.
Yeah.
You know what?
There you
I'm
go.
starting to think you actually are three possums in a shish kebab.
The secret way I actually designed this game.
Well,
Nicely done, Bridget. Congratulations.
yes.
Thank you.
Awesome.
I can't wait to see what else comes out of your group. This is just amazing. And thank you so much for stopping by. Can't wait to check out part 2 on Sarah's Table. Speaking of, that's going to be our episode. So everybody, please make sure you stick around, because up next we have at 5 p.m. Sarah's Table. Join us for some joyful gaming there. Sarah Moore and friends are going to be playing Psychic Trash Detectives, and you get to see it in action. I am very curious to see what garbage pops up.
And And you will.
As for the GCTV schedule, of course, on Mondays at 4 p.m., check out Board Games with the Brothers Murph. 6 p.m., check out Dress the Quest. Wednesday at 6 p.m., check out Actoroki. Really awesome show. Thursday at 10 a.m., Blood on the Clock Tower. At 4 p.m., Roll with Rim Alternatives. And hey, I'm on that show.
Yeah.
Big join us back here next Friday at 2 p.m. for Table Takes Game Night, and of course, Sarah's Table. Thank you so much for checking out the show. Thank you so much to our wonderful host and our awesome guest.
Yes.
And remember, if you miss any of our programming, you can check out the VODs here on Twitch or on YouTube 24 hours later. Follow GCTV here for more of the best 4 days in gaming all year round. And absolutely do not forget to follow Scripted Gaming. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
And thanks to Bonita for technical assistance on this show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Anita, for producing and also dealing with me 24/7. Bye.